Welcome to Ready, Set, Rise, the ultimate podcast made for martial artists by martial artists, with your hosts, Aaron Hensley and Cameron Smith.
All right, so I'm joined here with John Geyston, and I do have that spelled right, Geyston. So,
Geyston.
good. I'm making sure because I do talk to text so much. I don't know if you ever do that,
Yeah.
and my Southern twang, my iPhone does not understand that. So John, give me a quick background. You've been in martial arts, I know, for a long time. I think we met 15 years ago, maybe or so, somewhere around there. Feels like
Probably
forever
longer than
ago.
that. Yeah.
Maybe
Could be.
longer.
Who
I'm
knows?
not, I'm
Yeah.
not, I'm not that old. I'm still a baby here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but give me a little background how you got started with martial arts and then how you got into martial arts school ownership.
Sure. I would, the short version of that is probably just like any reason kids get involved in martial arts today. I had moved. I was in 4 different grade schools by the time I was in 4th grade.
Okay. What
Um,
for what reason? Was your family military or
my, my,
just
my father was killed in a car accident when I was 4.
see, I didn't
So
know this. Okay.
so my mother had me when she was 17.
Okay.
She's killed. So now you got a 21-year-old widow with no high school education and 2
Wow. Okay.
kids, right? But she would always do her best to make it, but she wasn't in the means, so we'd always end up back at my grandparents' house. So she would do her best to be on our own independent. We'd always go back, So, and I was little. I didn't weigh over 50 pounds till after, I think it was 2 months after my 10th birthday. And so I was the target for all the I was shy, I was quiet. I always joke and say, and plus being good looking made all the other boys jealous.
Yeah. It's the hair.
But
It's
no,
the hair.
I was, I was just targeted. And when I was 9, my mother put me in. I was always drawn to it. Back then, that summer in 1972, August is my birthday. So May, June, she put me in martial arts, and it was terrible. It was terrible because in 72, everybody that taught martial arts made John Kreese look like a nice guy.
Yeah.
They were just, and I told my mom once, she goes, "How do you like it?" And I go, "I don't." She goes, the guy slaps me in the head. He called me an idiot. He
Yeah.
called me uncoordinated. I said, I would rather just get beat up by the kids. Now it's a full grown man that has talent. And,
Right.
so, and I did that. Then I got back in. I did a little bit of boxing in between that. I really didn't take to that. But I was drawn because I liked, Kung Fu TV series. I had the lunch box and everything. I got back. I did a little bit of boxing, got back in martial arts when I was 15, did it for about a year and a half. And not much of a better experience, really. And at 18, I'm out at a community college. And they got an intramural program, and I passed it every day. And it was there was one class. I think it was my Wednesday class. It was right down the hall from my history class or whatever I was taking. And anyway, I walked in, saw those guys, talked to them about it, put a gi on, and the rest is history. I've done it every day since then, really. And I shouldn't say every day, but 4 or 5 days a week I train. I still train martial arts. So 47 years total in the martial arts, 43 years now running it. And then my instructor came to me, and it was a community college, so two-year program. And the black belt instructor was taking a job in Tennessee. And I think I was green belt, and there was another guy that was a purple belt. And he asked us if we would take over the program. And if we did, we'd get free membership to the main academy. Right.
Okay.
So I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah.
Because I'm delivering pizzas and, cutting grass. Eventually I was working UPS preload. So it wasn't like, I was just trying to get myself
Right.
and I didn't have the money. And I always joke, and everybody's like, oh, later advance forward, people give me credit for being a smart business owner. And I'm like, well, my very first contract, I negotiated working 45 hours a month for $52.50 a month. So that I wasn't that brilliant, right? So
Right.
anyway, that's kind of what led to, and at that point, I just enjoyed martial arts. I enjoyed the karate. and I enjoyed competing. And it
Okay.
was just a way for me to train. And then there was something literally clicked. I think it was the second or third belt test when you got people that are my age, 19, 20 years of age, telling my instructor how this changed their life and giving me some credit. I'm like, I've never in my life been told
Yeah.
anything that I added value to anybody. And I'm like, so I can do this, spar and go to these tournaments, do this during. I'm like, why? This is the greatest job ever.
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with teaching at that point. Um, and I did that for 1982 to 1996. I taught.
Okay.
I call it bivocational.
Right. Right.
I
Right.
had
Yeah.
had a job to support because where I was from, nobody made a living teaching
Right.
martial arts. You were told you couldn't. There's just no possible way. And I remember when I quit my job. And when I quit my job, by the way, by this time, I was labor relations for the state of Illinois. I got recruited away by the Teamsters.
Okay.
And I left in 96 when I went to run my school full time. I walked away from $125,000 career.
Right. Yeah.
And I was told to stay, and that they'd give me and they offered me a $30,000 raise to stay. That's
Yeah.
1996. So it wasn't like
That's
I was
right.
trying to find a job. I
Right.
walked
Right.
away, and that next year I made $5,000 is what I took home. And then I realized no matter how many tournaments.
Hey guys, we'll get you right back to the video here in a second. If you want to scale your company, if you want to grow your company, click this link below right now. One of our team members is going to reach out to you in the next 24 hours, and we're going to help guide you through the process. We have the goal of impacting business owners in the martial arts space around the world so we can impact our kids, our future, and build resilience through everybody. And I know you can create heaven on earth through your business. So I want you to go to the next level in your business. Click this link below and we'll reach out to you. And I promise I will overpromise and overdeliver, and we'll back up that faith all the time that you're going to go to the next level personally, professionally, financially. And I can't wait to personally meet you.
I won, how great I thought I taught, I didn't know what I was doing. And that led to United Professionals. And then, the
Yeah.
rest is history a
Rest is
little bit,
history.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny listening to your story because, uh, you know, basically, even though different, there's a lot of similarities in paths. A
Yeah.
lot of trauma about being slapped by my instructor, which happened to be my dad. So I got slapped double time.
At
So
home and the mat.
yeah, but yeah, right. So when you said, you're 19, 20, you're young, you're hearing these people about their life being changed about martial arts, and that resonated with you about having value.
Yes.
And then your next comment is about it's the greatest job ever. Fast forward a couple decades here. Do you still feel that?
I do. I still, and I get people, I mean, you pretty much follow me. We've known each other.
Yeah.
I work out, I still work out. I lift weights
Yeah.
but I always tell people I lift weights to stay healthy, but really I do it to prevent injuries.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I said almost everything I do is still based on the fact that I roll 4 to 5 days a week. I don't hit as much mitts. I got a bad left knee. I know how to do my jujitsu and compensate for my left knee that they've been
Right.
trying to tell me I need replaced
Forever. Yeah.
for 7 years now. And I
Yeah.
asked the doctor once, and this goes to show you how much I'm still into the training. I asked the doctor, I said, can I, the orthopedic surgeon at this time was when I was in Illinois. And I said, Doc, you see what I do? Can I do what I do if I get this knee replacement? Because I'm dealing with pain. And he was like, everything other than this what you do on the ground. And I go, so the jujitsu part. And he goes, yeah. And I go, nah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And he goes,
Right.
no, you're not fine. You got to have it done. I go, I don't have to have it done.
Right.
I said, it's my choice, it's my body, right?
Yeah.
Type thing. And I go, and I said this to him. I go, here's Doc. This is me. This is what I do. This is who I am. This is what
Right.
makes
It's your
me happy.
it's your identity. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I would rather have a shitty knee and a great life than a good knee and a shitty life. And I said,
I
that's
like
where
that.
I'm at.
I like
And
that.
I go, I'm going to continue training. So I say that because I still love. I was supposed to compete last weekend, and I do have a back injury. And it's from 2 years ago, and I could not. I'm 62. I'm training a 10-week camp.
Okay. Yeah.
That's kind of goofy at
Yeah.
62.
Uh,
And I did
I would
really,
I
really
would say
great.
so.
Yeah. And in about maybe 11 days before the event, my lower back starts flaring up.
Yeah.
And so and I just say it was because, okay, I need to approach this in a more, I listen to my body. I truly do. I think I'm not nearly doing anything I did at the same age of 40, 50. Um, but I think we did great, but my body could not sustain 10 weeks. So now I
Yeah.
just got to figure out how to do a training
I do
camp.
it.
But I still want to get out there and compete. I still enjoy that.
Well, I just talked to Carlos
Just
Machado,
bump and go. Yeah.
and he was talking about that his goals have changed, like because he wants to do jiu-jitsu till he's 100. And he was talking about, like, at his age, because I think y'all probably are close in age. He was talking about how he shifted his thinking and his training. And so, the how you are in your 20s and 30s and 40s kind of starts shifting as because if you want to
Yeah.
continue to do it, right? Like depends
Right.
on what your
Right.
goals are, right? So, but you weren't, correct me if I'm wrong, you weren't always in jiu-jitsu, correct?
No, no. I was Shudokan karate. That
Right.
was
Okay.
1920. And then I studied then Goju Shorei and then ended up in Kempo in 1989.
Okay.
Um, I did the BKF Kempo with Steve Saunders, Donnie Williams. And then back to Illinois. I was doing a little bit of the Japanese jiu-jitsu. I got a Japanese
Okay.
jiu-jitsu background through the D Pasquale's out on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And then my current instructor, who's been my instructor since 96, 97, um, is Kempo Jutsu. It's Kempo and the Japanese jiu-jitsu kind of blended to it. It's kind of a hybrid
Okay.
system. But I went to my first I did a Hensley Gracie seminar like literally before I ever saw UFC 1.
Yeah.
And just because a guy invited me up, I'm that guy that always wanted to cross train. I was doing Filipino knife and stick fighting and stuff. And I had a connection to this guy and following him. And he asked me if I wanted to come to this event. And so I dabbled, but
Right.
I would say 17 years ago, I got into it heavy.
Pretty
And,
serious. Yeah.
that was one of my things with Premier. One of my main
Yeah.
reasons of being with Premier Martial Arts was the jiu-jitsu curriculum.
Having.
And as you know, they never could keep anybody. I
Right.
think they
Yeah.
had 4 different instructors in 2 years.
Yeah.
So anyway, but that was the start of that
That journey.
jujitsu. And I just enjoy it. I truly
Yeah.
do. I feel like, don't get me wrong, I still do the knife, gun,
Well, yeah, I mean,
club,
you're a
self-defense.
martial artist, right? I mean,
Yeah,
like
yes.
that's the people forget that there's two parts to that word,
Yeah.
and if you're a lifelong person, you're also a constant student, which makes, two things when I hear that. But one thing that I think sometimes we don't articulate well as teachers, um, we know the answer, but we don't show this enough, is like what makes uh martial arts continue to be fun for us is because we're
Right.
constantly searching and we're learning. And so people
And
are the
growing.
happiest and growing. So people are happiest when they are learning something new, right? So you read a book, you're all excited, or you see a movie and you go to a new restaurant. The problem is people don't continue to move towards new things.
Right.
And if they do, they're doing it just to check a box. They're not doing it to really grasp it. And so the lifelong martial artist is like, we we rediscover even the things we love. Like you doing jiu-jitsu for a long time, it's still new because there's something to get better at constantly, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's what keeps you
And I
happy.
think, yeah. And I think that's with any, and maybe jujitsu is because it's a combative base, but Muay Thai,
Right.
Krav Maga has that flavor, but give me, it's been a while, but I'll
Yeah.
still break out katas from
Right.
1982,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So I just love it all, and,
I
and,
do.
and
I
it's
do too.
funny
Yeah.
because in our business, you and I have talked about in the past being a part of these mastermind group per se,
Yeah.
or going to attending events. I always want to know. You don't know what you don't know. I want to know. It's the same thing with my martial arts. If I got a guy who's better at the triangle, I'll go do it. I'll pay for a 3-hour seminar on the triangle to
Heck,
improve my triangle. I'll do the same thing
absolutely.
with the business. And I remember, and there's at least 3 groups, and I won't say their name, Michael Perello being one, and I will say his name, because I was really mind blown by it. I'm sitting there with him, and I don't mean that as an offense to Michael.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm at a room. He calls me out in a room of 30 people. And, at this point, I'm kind of like, as this
Yeah.
business goes, I had to get rid of a guy who ended up stealing from me.
Yeah.
And so when I'm in this group, I'm in the group only sharing that story. And he calls me out in this group and he says, well, you know, if you would take your gi off and actually focus on your business, maybe you'd be more successful. And I'm thinking, you and I both know my
Right.
success has always been there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I've never not been successful.
Right.
There's times I've been more successful
Right.
than others, but I've
Right. Yeah.
always been
Yeah.
in the success camp. And it's funny now, and you know, and I told Michael, I said, listen, man, everybody, and I did, I said, here's my thing, guys. Is there anybody in this room that was doing six figures before they walked away to do this? Because I did. And I did this because I'm passionate about martial arts. I'm still passionate. I'm going to train. And if
Right.
running a successful school means I have to take my gi off, then guess what? This is the wrong group for me.
Right.
Plain
Right.
and
Right.
simple. But now you're hearing all these people act like they're an advocate that you got to be teaching. You need to be training, teaching, and testing, and you need to develop yourself. And I agree with that.
Right.
And Bill Clark's a big advocate of it, but I think Master Clark has always been an advocate of it. I don't think he's ever not been. But there are other consultants now, all of a sudden, are like, oh, you know what? We need to tell people they need to train again, or they need to. Okay, we should be doing that because how can I represent the martial art if I don't even care for the martial arts? And you and I both know people that care for the business side of it more than they care for the art side of it.
Yeah. I mean, so I think things are cyclical in life, period. Right. So like, someone made a comment about the guy that formed the halftime show for the Super Bowl and talking about he's wearing like bell bottoms or whatever like that, right? And like, I'm like, clothing goes through trends and they come back, right? And I think things happen in trends with business too, and how people speak and communicate. So like for 20 years, our teachers in the public school system have been promoting this concept of like, you know, get good grades so you can get into a good college, you can get a good job. And people never paused and thought like, well, why are we being promoted this? Well, we'll follow the money, right? Governments are backing the loans. They own the colleges for the most part. In business, the whole theory for the past, you know, go back 10, 15 years was, you know, you need to get out of your business to work on your business. You can't work in your business and on your business. But the thing is like, and I've been to a lot of masterminds outside of the martial arts, and these are people who are, you know, 100x what I've ever even thought about doing. And all of them, even to this day, are doing both. They're in and working on, and they always have.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only way. Like, because once you fall out of love of what you're doing and it's just a money play, your decision making changes. Now you could be too emotionally driven by your business, and karate people are the worst at this. Sometimes, you know, we love the art more than the other part. But you get, as a business owner, you get to make that choice. Like, hey, look, I'm going to choose this over this. But yeah, I think the only way to do it is you got to be both. You got to be in and working on it, you know?
Yeah, no, and I know 100%. And I do, and I get to in his defense, he just maybe had the wrong read on the scenario, but also what was the context of? Maybe there was somebody else in that room he was trying to make a point.
Sure. And he was a master salesperson too, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. And you know, I do believe there are some people that believe them winning the next tournament, how good their sidekick is, how good their takedowns are, is what makes the school the choice. No, you do need to work on your business. And so I think in the proper context, there are some people that need to they need to balance that. They need that other 50% going on in their academy, because wearing the gi and teaching the class and doing this is not going to grow it. You know, you do have to have the business, and it goes back to where I said you go from making 125,000 a year being a single dude, where your car and everything's paid for, and then you're on your own and you make $5,000. That is a drastic change in circumstances of life, right? But again, being a single dude, and just to put that in perspective, I want to say I had a 2-bedroom bungalow in a nice little neighborhood. I think my car and my house and everything were under $800 a month. You know, and you're making, so it wasn't like the 5 broke me.
Right.
But it was damn close.
you weren't living the high life though. But yeah,
because I had so much from making that other and then not having expenses.
yeah,
But
man,
imagine the struggle on that if there wasn't that buffer backup. You
yeah, for
know,
sure, no doubt. So when did you move to Tampa? When did you move to Florida?
3 years ago, September,
Okay.
and
Now, were you running a school before that and then making the transition, or is it just like,
yeah,
hey,
no,
look,
I
I'm ready?
still had my I still have the school up in Illinois. I brought on a managing partner with me now,
Okay.
and the goal is for him to completely own it.
Okay.
Um, and we have that all worked out, and it's the same thing. It's like as we just said, we started it, no one ever did it. I had people call me and tell me not to leave my job when I started. You're making a mistake. And I think now we're in a position where, hey man, this guy has worked for me. He's been with me since 1993.
Oh
He's
wow.
running the
Yeah.
school for the last 3 years. I'm 1,200 miles away in Tampa, so Springfield,
Yeah.
Illinois. He's still running that school without me, and he deserves that. And I'm excited for him to have this best life ever on
Yeah.
something I built. He continues the legacy, so it's a win-win scenario completely. But so I still have that school, and then we moved down here. And really, moving down here was it was a part of the plan.
Yeah.
We were coming to Tampa frequently at that point, and
What is it
we
about that area that you're attracted to?
Florida. No,
Right. Yeah. I mean, but
it's
like, what?
yeah,
But
I think
why?
it was
Why Tampa, not Miami or Orlando or?
yeah. Well, I don't really know. We were just coming here frequently. We're like, hey, let's do that. We had lived when I worked for United Professionals in 2000,
Okay.
2001. And we were on what was that, Coral Springs, so kind of the east
Yeah.
coast of Florida then. And everybody kept telling me the west coast is a little more milder, a little more chilled, a little more Midwestern. And I see that. So I don't really, there wasn't something that made me go, oh, Tampa,
Right.
but
Is a
just Tampa seemed logical, right?
yeah.
Um, and then my kids, one was in college. He's graduated now, he's 22, and he was going to Southern Illinois University at that point, and he wanted to switch his program. My daughter, who said she was never going to go to college, she was going to take over the
Right. Business.
karate
Yeah.
academy. Um, then she decides she wants to go to college. So when she picks it out, you know, um, it's Florida, and I started looking at it, and I'm like, I called my wife in the room, and I said, "Listen, we got two kids in college. Our son's $50,000 a year. Were we going to do $100,000 a year? Because neither one of these kids wanted to go to college, so we didn't put that,
Right. Right. What?
away from
Right. Right.
them.
Right.
But Jaden wants to go to the school she picked out, and I go, if I got to be reading this right, if we're a resident of Florida, it's $15,000 a year.
It's a big. Yeah. It's a big change. Right.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm just like, that's 4 years for the price of one,
Yeah.
basically.
So you made a
Um,
business decision. I
I
like it.
did. And so
Yeah.
this was the third week of June.
Okay.
She comes home and she says, Dad, I don't know if I want to run the school. I think I want to go to college. I go, that's good. And by the way, this is all text. She had walked through the kitchen and I was getting ready to do a big seminar at my school the next day. And then she texted me that. And I go, do you want to talk about that? She goes, no, text is good. Um, I think she thought I was going to be upset. And I go, no, I'm not
Right.
upset. I go, I want you to live your best life, not live the life that you think I want you to live.
Right. Right. Right.
So anyway, we made that and fast forward, Aaron. It was funny. She never did go to that college. She picked a
Okay.
private college that cost me $50,000 a year. Um, but um,
Uh,
but anyway, that was it, and we did that in third week of June. She has this conversation with me. We signed a lease the first week of August and
love
moved
it.
in September. So I mean, it was
Quick.
fast. But I was at that point where we had scaled the business in Springfield. I had two. Matter of fact, I'll take that back. I had two locations, Springfield and Rochester, when I moved down
Yeah.
here. We didn't merge them together because it was too much in my absence for the team to.
Right. Let's keep it
So
going.
we,
Yeah.
we closed the one, we merged it in, and made perfect logical sense at that point. But yeah, that was kind of like how it came to be, and
Now, when you're telling me the story, here's what I just heard, just so you know. Uh, that was to me, it felt like total guy talk about how we justify what we buy. Of like, hey, because you wanted to go to Florida. Hey, here's a good opportunity to make sense of it.
yes,
So that's like trying to buy the
100%.
boat, and you make sense of buying the boat.
Yeah,
Um,
you know, And I want to be careful how I say this because I don't want to be taken the wrong way. I needed a new challenge
Oh, no,
because
I understand that fully.
40,
I
42 years running the same location. I'm like,
right.
or not, it's 43 now. So 40 years at the
Yeah.
same, I'm like, I don't
So
really need to be here. What's the excitement? I love building. I love creating. I
yeah.
want to create a new school. I want to do, and this is the perfect opportunity.
So conversation we can continue in the future too. A lot of people would ask me, it's like, why did I expand to so far with my schools? I was in 3 time zones, 6 states. I was all the way from Georgia to Oregon, so I don't
Wow.
recommend that. But I told people, I said I did that for basically like 3 reasons. But the main reasons was I was preparing myself when the opportunity came that if I could run this organization and I'm sitting in front of an owner that's in a different market, I didn't want them to ever say, yeah, it works for you because you're there,
Yes.
right? And I want to say, hey, that school is 3,700 miles away from where I live, and it's the most accessible because I bought an existing school, right? So I
Right.
want to
Right.
be able to have that. I didn't want anybody to be able to say, yeah, but, right? So that was part of it. The
Right.
other part is honestly, like kind of what you just said there is I just wanted to test me. Hey, can I do this?
Yes.
And so in the past, so in 2019, similar story to you. 2019, it was September. I'm sitting in someone's house and basically see that there's some holes in the game, and it says, "Hey, if we make this deal, I'll move here within 7 days." So we made a handshake deal. Within 7 days, I moved from South Carolina to Tennessee without my family. They moved 6 months later. Of course, COVID happens during that time. And then this past November, I make a business deal very similar. I moved from Tennessee to Nevada. I live in Nevada now.
Oh,
And the
do you?
only
Okay.
reason and the only reason is because it's like I want to be mercurial because I had this thing as a kid. No one left my hometown. And it's not that I want to leave my hometown. I want to test I constantly want to test, you know, I don't want to get so blinded by my environment that I don't see it.
Right. Right.
And my kids who just they were with me, they still in Tennessee right now. And they were like, man, because I'm in Vegas or Henderson, right, or outside of Vegas. They're like, these mountains are gorgeous. Well, in Tennessee, we live in the Smoky Mountains, and they're gorgeous. But
Right.
when you're around it
Right.
all the time, you don't see it anymore. And so my intent personally is like this year, I plan on spending 3 months abroad, living abroad for 3 months. I don't actually want to ever have roots anymore the rest of my life. I want
Right.
to have
Right.
a couple home bases where I can operate and because I love teaching, I love martial arts, I love that environment. So I want some bases. I also want the challenge of can I do it anywhere in the world? Can I connect with people? Can I give education, give my heart, my mind, my skill? So that's the beauty of as you get older, you get a little bit more like curiosity kind of shines and you've done
Yes.
something as long
Right.
as you have, like you could go anywhere, Tampa, anywhere, you could go anywhere and recreate yourself, which is pretty awesome to have that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and you can, and this is a question as well as a statement, I guess. There are things a little more difficult. It's taken me, running my school in Illinois. I was at the point after 40 years, I would like to say that we are
Right.
the
The
brand.
pinnacle. Yeah. Yeah.
We're the brand in Illinois.
Yeah.
No one has done it longer. Our name has been known. We market. We're in TV. We're in radio. We Thanksgiving Bass Brigade. We always had. We feed. Gosh, I can't remember what we
You're
probably
part
did
of the you're
almost
part of
two
the
hundred
fabric.
thousand. Yeah, we're built into that community,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't want to say lazy, but you get a little like okay. And I remember coming down
Well,
here.
well, it's a machine. You built a
It
machine.
is.
Yeah.
And I didn't need to do some things. It was on autopilot, right?
Yeah.
So I
By the
come
way,
down here.
that's called success. So
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
yeah, right.
So I come down here and I go, you know what? I got to get out there, not just social media. I got to get out there and organic market. Let's work just some do business to business. I go down, I meet the mall, and I say, hey, you got these events coming up. Is there any way we can work together? This is who I am. This is what I do. And the lady got super excited. She goes, "Yes, let's meet. Can you meet me in 2 days?" And so we set the appointment. I come back. I text her and I said, "Hey, I'm here." She comes out and she's like, "Okay." And there was an awkwardness, like she was almost like not the same person. And we're talking, she goes, I'm sorry. I don't remember meeting you. Who are you again? And what are we talking about? And I'm like, oh, I said, I apologize. I said, I came in Wednesday. I talked to you. Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. And then she does the hop choppy motions.
Right,
You're
right, right,
the guy.
right,
Yeah,
right, right.
okay. It's whatever you need to call it. But anyway, but I come back and I told my wife, I go, I don't want to sound arrogant, but that's the first time I've had to introduce myself
Right,
in the years.
right, yeah,
So, and here I am. And I mean, and I use that story just to say the systems were in place, but the community is unaware of who I am. I'm the brand new
yeah.
guy. How am I different than anybody else?
And probably a bigger community than you're used to as well, too, as far
Huge,
as,
huge.
yeah. Because Tampa's on fire right now. It's just blowing up.
Yeah. And and I'm in the West Chase area of Tampa, 15 minutes northwest, I guess, of the airport.
Okay.
Downtown, probably 20 minutes. So it's an area. And I'll just say it does have a Midwest vibe to it, but it's a very transit area that I think a lot of people move in here. And housing is ridiculously expensive in this area.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can go 40 minutes north and get the same. So you can here, if you want a 30-year-old home that's about 1,800 square foot, you're in the easily starting market of 575 to 625
It's crazy, isn't it? That's
for a
crazy.
30-year-old home.
Yeah.
But I can go 40 minutes north and I can get an 8-year-old home a little bit larger for $150,000 less.
Isn't
So
that crazy? That's
So I
crazy.
have a lot of people that come in, they join my school, and they quit. And I'm like, man, what's wrong with my retention? Well, my retention, I can show you, is about 2% higher, but it would all these people that relocated. I can't,
Yeah,
that has nothing to do with me. They do
yeah.
ask me, do you have a school in the Wesley Chapel area? I don't,
Right,
but we will.
right,
Because
right,
you're
right,
telling
right.
me that's where we need to be. So, it's just, but I live 10 minutes from my academy. And literally it's only 2 turns in that
I
10
think,
minutes.
just on a note on that too, the metrics you measure based on density, population, and also the transient type vibe cities like that have are not the standard of what people would teach you in the martial arts community. And I think that one of the things that we do as, I hate the word consultant. I see myself as a coach, like I'm an
Coach, mentor,
educator,
yeah.
right?
Yep. Yep.
I feel like people just kind of, you know, there's very like vagueness and very like flat line of understanding, and I think mostly it's because unless there's people out there I just don't know, and I think I know 90% of the people in the space. Most people that are in the coaching space are educating people, and their skill was in a town that they were in, and then they would help coach other people, and that people have success, so they have stories of other people's, but it wasn't their own money, their own skill, their own, you know, and so and going back to what I was saying before, is like I've been in big markets. I was in Atlanta, Georgia, for example. It's a pretty big market. I was in outside of Portland, Oregon, in a small little town community there. I was in Augusta in South Carolina and Tennessee, and Colorado. I was in Indiana. So like I was in these different markets, and every market is a little different in how you measure these numbers. And Tampa is definitely probably way different from where you came
Yes.
from
Yeah.
Springfield, as far as
100%.
even how
And
they consume products outside of martial arts, just how they
yes.
do anything.
And as previously discussed, it's activity. Here it's
Yeah.
beautiful weather year round.
Yeah.
In Illinois, you're hibernating 5 months out of the year, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those people are excited to come to class.
Yeah. They're like, let's go. Yeah.
They've got a whole lot of options. But I was gonna say, I live 10 minutes from the school. I pass 4 other academies in that. And I mean, when you've always heard the 2 things that I would say that makes the Tampa market a little bit different than what I'm used to in the Illinois market, outside of being established and building that rapport. And we're seeing it now. We're seeing now that, as when you're in a restaurant, Anchi, blah, 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 blah. And I really enjoyed the first 2 years of never hearing that.
Right. Yeah.
Because, in
Yeah.
Illinois, it's like,
Right. Yeah.
I'm
Right.
in a
Yeah.
grocery store or whatever. And I'm appreciative. I don't
Right.
mean
No,
that.
it's just it's because it's new again. It kind of like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
get to be a
So it
white belt
was,
again. Right.
yeah. So
Yeah.
but now it's being, established. We're starting to see that kick in. But, I think it's, one is 3 miles here could be a 20-minute drive.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So where I'll give you a perfect example. I went back and I taught. I go back about every 8-10 weeks to my
Okay.
Illinois location, and then my jujitsu instructor is in St. Louis, Missouri, which is about an hour 40. I think my house where I stay to his front door is about an hour 50 minutes. Right?
Okay.
So it's 73, 74 miles. I can be there. I can cover that in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Here, 7 miles is an hour and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think people think, oh, you're going to go in this big market. Well, that big market's actually a small market
You're
because the
right.
traffic and the density of so much is that they're still only going to go. Very rarely are they going to drive more than 20 minutes to come to a place. So it comes down to that 3-5 mile radius, where in Illinois, I have people that literally are coming to me 40 miles away
Yeah.
because they
Well,
can be there in 40 minutes.
yeah. Like I said, I've lived in Vegas now for a few months, and I'm 6 miles from the strip. 6 miles. I can see it from my house without even doing anything. And I don't want to drive it because if it's
Yeah.
Friday afternoon, you're trying to go to a dinner somewhere close to the strip, that 6 miles can take you an hour and a half.
Right.
It's like this is painful. And I'm coming from a small town where I've lived in the past, and it is different. And people are so convenience based. They're door dashing now. Like
Yes.
they don't want to leave. So you got to be close to them. You got to be convenience based. Otherwise, people
One-
aren't coming to you.
Right. Right. No, I
You know?
agree with that. So it's a different for sure. And you've always heard that when literally there's a school on every corner. Well, this might be the place. This might be
Wherever,
the
yeah.
place where that is true. And like I
I
said,
think
I can see that. I don't know. I was reading something, and I don't even know how accurate this would be, but it makes perfect sense from my experience. And that is that there are more martial arts schools in the state of Florida than there is in the entire country of Australia. And I mean, there's so much, and like jujitsu's heavy down here because a lot of the Brazilians, they
right.
don't like cold climate. So they're coming to Florida, and
Yeah.
I moved down here and I'm teaching martial arts, empowered martial arts. But as you know, I've made this big shift. I'm really into the jujitsu. I'm my black belt now, but 3 years ago when I moved down here, I'm a brown belt. So you're talking about a middle-aged Caucasian brown
Right.
belt coming down
Right.
here and eight-time world champion from Brazil, who's a sixth degree, literally is 10 minutes from my academy, right?
Yeah.
So how are they going to attract? So then I'm in this whole different, not only that, but you don't know me.
Right.
And so I don't have the reputation of being the household name as I did in
Right.
Illinois. So there were a lot of little challenges of reestablishing. Now, people are happy, they're excited. We just don't see I still to this day sign up probably anywhere from 18 to 20 people in Illinois when we push marketing, right? Sometimes
Right.
we
Right.
don't
Right.
because we don't need to.
Right.
So we're very comfortable. We know our number. We know how to get back to our number when we need it. Here, a good month is 10, 11 students enrolled,
Yeah.
and it's totally different.
Well, maybe this part of the conversation we can continue in the future. I have a strategy. If I was in your position, I'd tell you what I would do. Maybe we could talk about that in the future. But also, here's the thing: is when I coach people, I have an idea based on what I would want to do with my goals. The first
Yeah,
thing I'd always ask you would be, well, how do you want the business to serve your personal, professional goals? Because, there's different seasons in life, and where you
right,
are now, you want to train so many days, you have family time, you want to enjoy being in Florida, you want to enjoy, right? So you might not need a certain level of skill.
right, right,
And a lot of times people say, well, that person's not successful because they're not, yeah, you don't know what's really important to them in life, and so as long as business serves you, there's also a fun way to dominate markets like that if you want to have massive scale. And a lot of it is understanding business outside of martial arts and how they do this. So
yeah,
to me, I love learning what motivates me And then I love learning what motivates other people. And then most of the time, people are not able to be honest about it because they haven't really asked themselves those questions, right? They haven't
Yes.
paused and
Yes.
said, hey, let me think. And you going to Florida and being, decades in one spot, going somewhere new, the fun part is you've gotten to rediscover some things or sharpen the saw a little differently type thing. So,
Yes. Yes.
um, kudos to you to do that because most people would be too scared. Most people would
Yeah.
just be the big bad black belts would be too scared to do that,
Yeah.
So
And
good,
I
good
mean,
on you.
it's still, I don't want to say it's still scary, but it 100%. And it was just like, but I'm up for the, and really at the end of the day, I think why we all do so well in the martial art business, it's a great career, as I said, but you can turn around, you can start a school, $50,000 probably out of pocket, depending, right, on build out
Sure.
and stuff like that. But you can negotiate that stuff, and you literally can turn around and be making that every month in a
Yeah.
short window period of time. It's a
Yeah.
very, I don't want to say if you know how to run the business,
That's the
you
key.
getting your investment back is
Yeah.
so
Pretty
much
quick.
quicker than any other business you can be in. I think someone, and I could be wrong on this, and especially if
Yeah.
I'm on this podcast, I don't want to come across
You're good.
but I want to say I read something where the average you have to have $1 million worth of net worth assets to qualify as a franchise, maybe for McDonald's, and and I can't remember what the capital to start one was, but the average person who owns a McDonald's your first year or two is making $7,500,000 a year. Does that?
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever looked at
So
those
I
numbers,
so
but I'm
I
like,
have I have I have I
yeah,
think some of it was I'll tell you the one that's crazy is Panera Bread is you have to have a $4 million net worth or something like that or build out process for such a return. Here's another stat. It's really crazy. I just read a book about McDonald's, so I'm glad you said this. Something like 78% of American population has worked a job at McDonald's at some point in their life.
wow,
That's crazy.
that's a legacy.
Which means McDonald's is training most of our staff in the work in America right now, and then of course that's all being replaced by computers. You're right about the martial arts industry. It's like my last school that I opened, it cost me about 50K to open, and we did
Yeah,
55K in the first 30 days. Um, so it is now, but if that's a big if, you know what you're doing, and you're not trying to learn as you go, and also you're not a franchise that makes you do a $300,000 build out for 1,200 square foot martial arts school, which
right.
is ludicrous and dumb, and no one should ever think that's the right way to go about doing it. But
Yeah. Yeah. I
um,
remember, I'm like I said, I'm old school and, and this is not a perfect commercial model, but I remember Joe Lewis, I always did all my kickboxing back in the 80s, 90s with Joe Lewis and Bill Wallace, right?
yeah,
And I remember Joe Lewis saying once, he goes, it ain't that hard to start one of these schools. You need four
it's
walls and a guy to stand up front. You got it.
pretty,
That's it.
it's
You really,
pretty accurate. It's pretty
yeah,
accurate. It's
really,
pretty
you just need
accurate.
four walls and a place for a guy to stand up
And
front.
you might not even need the four walls, so you
Exactly.
might not need that.
And just the
Uh,
simplicity of that. I know Joe Lewis was not what you call a commercial model of
Definitely
an
not.
operator, but
Definitely not.
I'm like, you know what? That's the simplicity of this model, really, right there.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. What from the martial arts as a practitioner, what are some of the lessons that you feel like you apply to the business world in general? Like what have you learned from as a student of the martial arts you apply to the business?
Yeah. Well, I think that's one is you have to be able to. I would say as a martial artist, I'm very open minded. I'm self reflective. I sit there
Okay.
and have conversations with myself all the time, right? Not
Right,
out in
right.
public where people think I'm crazy. But I mean, I never, when I'm having a trouble, I'll sit there like, okay, how would I coach myself right now?
Okay. I like that
Um,
one.
and you have to, I think I'm very good at acknowledging what my weaknesses are and how do
Okay.
I turn them into strengths. And you have to be resilient and you have to understand that every failure is a part of the success that you're aiming for. Without that failure, it's almost impossible to get there. You have to make the mistakes. I remember years ago when I started, when I make this probably all about the same time, in the Tony Robbins, I'm at that era when I get a Tony Robbins. I still have it. It's the big thing with all the cassettes. And my
Yep,
wife
yep,
went to
yep.
throw it out like she was going to give it to Goodwill when we moved. And I'm like, no, no, no. She goes, you don't. I go, I know I don't. But I keep that on my bookshelf because that is, to me, was my pivot of life right there.
Yeah,
You know, I
yeah,
listen to that guy when I'm traveling for work and as a
yeah.
laborer. I'm listening to Tony Robbins all the time. And the one that stood out to me, and I'm like, man, it's such a martial art mindset, is we know that if I make 10,000 mistakes, I'm going to be better at that.
Yeah.
So rather than spending 10 years to make 10,000 mistakes, how can I make 10,000 mistakes in 12 months?
No, I
And
condense
cut the
it down.
learning
Yeah,
curve, right?
yeah.
And to me, I'm like, wow, that is such a martial art mindset. Why do we spar? And why
Right.
do we spar people that are better than us? Because we want to compete at a higher level than we currently are at. So I need the tough people to make me fail. Get your hand up, watch your neck, keep your elbows in. I gotta have those challenges to expose a weakness before it can ever become a strength. And that make the 10,000 mistakes as fast as you can.
So if you were going to go sit in the classroom, then are you the kind of guy that sits in the back of the classroom or the front of the classroom?
Man, I think I'm in the middle.
Okay. All right. All right.
And,
I
and
got
here's
you.
why. It's funny that you say this because someone sent me some pictures of the last couple events I've been at, and I've always been in the middle.
Okay.
But I'll usually come up front. But I also, when I don't know a group, I kind of stay in the middle because I feel like when that person speaks, I want to be able to see who it is. And when I'm up front, I can't see who the third row person is asking the question.
Right. Right.
Right.
Right.
So that's where I'm at.
I like it.
But
Okay.
I think I lean to the guy. I want to be up front because I want to hear and I want to be in this communication. But at the same time, I know when I'm in a room of people I don't know, I kind of take that seat in the position in the middle because I can see the room.
When I ask that question to martial artists, I get different answers for different reasons. And a lot of times it's like, as the person that feels like you're responsible for protecting people, right? It's like I gotta, right. But I think most people, the reason why a lot of times they want to be in the back of the room is they don't want the eyeballs or the attention. And so for that's I think the natural personality people is like we don't want the spotlight. And so I have to force myself in positions of uncomfortable, of failure
Yeah.
to get better. And then we always love that. I was coaching a group yesterday in Texas, and there's five of us or five of them sitting at a table with me. And you probably do this a lot of times when you're teaching. You ask a question you already know the answer to, especially as a parent, we do this, right? And not to like trick them, but to see their thinking. I'm like trying to learn how they resonate.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm asking a question, and then after they're kind of going through some answers, I says, "Well, here's the issue." I was like, "Everyone here, do you guys pay attention? Like, who actually was speaking, who wasn't speaking?" I was like, "This is a safe space. You guys all know each other, but you're all waiting for the next person to say something because you're sitting around and you don't want to steal the spotlight, but you also don't want to be wrong. So the five people who are running this martial arts school that is successful, is doing well, you're still waiting for someone to step up and be the leader. And that's what parents are paying their kids to come to you to become. So if you don't act like it, if you're not acting as if, even if you're not there yet, it's okay not to be there yet. You got
Right.
to act towards it. So like you're the kind of person though, you're saying being resilient and self-reflective and things like that you've gotten from your martial arts and you apply it to your business goes back to the reason why how you can move, you know, 1,700 miles away or whatever, and then go
Yeah.
reproduce this because you've applied this in your life. So I love
Yeah.
seeing that.
And I think too,
Uh,
and you hit on this, and I'll say this, that for me, the challenge I told you, I felt like I needed challenge. I needed something
yeah, yeah.
again I got complacent.
That's why
You
you
know,
look so young right now. Because like that, it
oh,
refreshes you. Yeah, no.
yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Keep those compliments coming. Okay. But I think for me, it was like, I needed the challenge. I wanted, and then I knew if I could repeat what I did in Illinois in a community that nobody knows me, and I can repeat that. Now I have a scalable system,
Yeah, sure.
right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
and then I know I've done it. I know it's no longer me.
Do you have someone in your life, currently or previously that you feel like was like the person that was kind of your mentor, whether martial arts, not martial arts, someone that's kind of like was
Gosh,
your North Star you're chasing or something?
yeah, I mean, I think anybody that's been in this industry as long as, um, I think there's many, right?
Okay.
And you and I, we ran into each other in Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And probably you were probably living out there at that time. I didn't even know because it'd been years
Right.
since
Right.
I'd seen you. But you know what? We've ran into each other, what, 4 or 5 different
Yep.
places. We're gonna be
Yeah.
in the same
This
event
weekend. Yeah.
this weekend.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
Um, so I think there's a lot of people, I obviously the name that gravitates right off the bat, and I would say is Grandmaster Bill Clark,
Okay.
Sergio von Schmeling, and just because Sergio von Schmeling is a product of Grandmaster Bill Clark, and
Right.
when I'm coming up, when I'm told you cannot make a living at this, well, hey, there's this guy I read about, and I don't know
Right.
him at this point. I just know who he is. But I'm old school enough that in the 80s, I knew who he was because he was the guy in the center of the ring on PKA on ESPN when I'm watching that every night, like every Thursday night, I think it was on, if I
Yeah.
remember right. But, so I knew who that was. And I'm like, okay, martial artist,
Right.
fighter, successful business owner.
Right.
So I would probably say if I had to pick one, definitely was, that person, and last December I was struggling pulling some triggers. I had a direction I wanted to go, and I sat on this for like 8 months, and I reached out to him, and just a generous man. I mean,
Yeah.
literally met with me in private, never charged me a dime, and spent
Yeah.
2.5 hours with me.
That's awesome. Yeah.
He's just a gentleman, and
Yeah.
he's just wise and
Well,
experienced.
what was your number one takeaway from that conversation that you felt like you got away from it?
Well, what I had moved away from was, and who knows why? And this is the thing where you got to get back and say, and I remember him telling me, he goes, Mr. Geyston, I didn't do anything for you today. I just reminded you what you're able to do and what you used to do, and just reminded you should go back and do it. That's all I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and he probably did,
Right.
but I needed to bounce it off of him because
Sure.
what I moved away from was there's not a lot of upgradable steps in a jujitsu style model only, right?
Right.
Now we have a blend, but and then I had moved away from long terms and prepays.
Yep.
And basically, I needed permission again to do that, right?
Right.
And I needed
Right.
to hear it from somebody that it wasn't wrong. Because in our industry, I think sometimes people come up with their angle, and it's not anything they're actually even doing. There's so many smoking mirrors in our industry.
Oh my goodness.
And
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking to me. It
Yeah.
truly
It
is.
is. It is. It
And you
is.
don't know who to trust anymore. When you got someone saying, "Oh, you can make a 7-figure academy by doing no contracts," no, you can't. No,
Right.
month to month, it ain't gonna happen.
Right.
I know there's people that are gonna profess that what I just said is completely inaccurate, but maybe you can. So I shouldn't say you can't. Maybe you can,
Right.
but I guarantee you're selling.
Probably not.
You're
Right. Probably not scalable. Right. Right.
Yes, exactly. So, I think you get so much information in your head, and you want to trust everybody. I do. I want to
So
get
you're
along with everybody. I want to trust everybody.
yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, and like I said, correct me if I'm wrong here, is you were having an internal struggle,
Yes,
you
100%.
know, and
All here.
you probably knew what you needed to do, but also you didn't want to lose the integrity of what we do in martial arts. It felt like you were just having an internal discussion here, and just needed someone to kind of tell you go do it.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
who do you go to? You go to, okay, well, I know he's successful.
Right.
I know it's somebody that I hold in high reverence,
Right. Yeah.
or reverence, and reminded,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
and maybe just like, yeah, I know what I want to do, but maybe I need to sit down with my dad and ask him,
Yeah.
like, hey, what's your
Absolutely.
opinion on this? And
Yeah.
And I want to simplify that version, right? Every once in a while
Right.
we just need to sit with a friend and
Yeah.
say, hey, I'm thinking about this. What's your thoughts?
And
And why do
it's
you
tough
think
in our
I'm hung up?
industry. It's tough in our industry because a lot of times, if someone at your stature calls someone, a lot of times they're thinking, what's his angle, whatever like that. And it's frustrating sometimes. The people we promote to be to these kids that we're teaching, for example, about all the things that martial arts represents. And I'll give you a side story that I haven't made too public, but I was part of an organization for decades. And I still don't know the factual reason why. I don't know the factual reason why. I have an idea, but I get an email basically saying that we're no longer renewing your membership type thing. And not only that, but then they removed my son from the organization
Oh,
with no context. Now I was a member of this organization for almost 4 decades. Okay. And so I get an email. So I email and try to call and say, hey, okay, cool. But can I just get an explanation? 4 decades, of paying and being part of a process for that. And then they said, no, this is this is what we're doing. No reason, nothing like that. So then, okay. I mean, people can do whatever they want to do. I send an email, go up the food chain or whatever like that. And I'm like, I don't mind if you guys have some personal vendetta, because that's really what it is. But you're gonna hurt my kid, like, and you promote to be integrity, loyalty, which I've been,
4
and
decades.
you can't even call me.
The courtesy
So
of
then,
that.
I wait a year. I send an email, say, hey, can we just bury the hatchet? I just want I don't want to be an organization. I just want to have a conversation. 4 decades, I can't get a conversation. Yeah, we'll meet with you. And then 3 months later, it doesn't get scheduled. I'll follow up and says, well, we won't be speaking to you at this time. And I'm like, this is some bullshit, if you ask me, to go promote to the world that your integrity and your all respect and all these things, and you're either too scared, intimidated by me for whatever reason, you can't even have a conversation. And I see this happen so much in our industry where it's basically we become hypocrites.
Yes.
And it sickens me because that organization I promoted for them, and now I regret it
Yeah.
because now I see them as hypocritical. You know, I see them just like it saddens me, but it's rampant in our world of martial art. Unfortunately,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. So there's good people out there, but unfortunately,
Yes.
there's a lot of bad players too. I'm
Yeah.
gonna wrap this up because I said we can go all day, and I'm already 20
100%.
minutes longer than I told you would. I've got 2 or 3 questions here. I'm gonna have some fun. Tell me if I'm coming to Tampa, what's the best place to go eat? Your favorite place so far that you found? You haven't been there long, couple of
Oh
years.
man, I'm not that's such a hard question for
You're
my
not a
wife would
foodie?
no, I'm not.
Yeah,
And
okay.
my brother just came down, no notice
Yeah,
whatsoever.
just showed up.
Um, and basically like 2 days before, he brings his daughter down there. It's her spring break.
Okay.
And, his wife and son went a different direction because he's in college and she's in high school. So their spring breaks were different.
Yeah, of
So
course.
they come
Yeah.
down here and I'm just like, man, you got to ask Amy. I don't know.
Yeah,
Because
you don't know.
I have an office 4 doors down from where I live.
Yeah.
And then I have the academy. So, I
Yeah. So
mean, it's a
you're
40
just
second
yeah.
walk to and I literally am just home, office,
Yeah.
school.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Um, but man, I wish I had,
All right.
Capitol Grill
I'll change.
Steakhouse is a place
Okay.
I
That's a good
like.
place. Yeah. Yeah.
Eddie V's, right? But I don't
Are you a pizza or a burger person?
love pizza. I'm a the Italian food. I could probably eat that. Now I did go to Italy last year, first time.
Okay.
Did 14 days there, and I never ever thought I would ever say I don't want to eat pizza or have any pasta for about a month. And when I come back, because it was almost every meal,
Every meal,
and
yeah.
so no, I love pizza. Big Italian food.
Pineapple on pizza or no?
I never wanted to do that, and then I did it one night, and ham and pineapple, and I gotta
Yeah.
tell you, it was good.
That's
But to
pretty.
me, it was
Yeah.
not the it was
That's your
uh,
go-to.
not the traditional way we have pizza, right? You're
Yeah,
no
for sure.
pineapple on no pizza.
So, you wrote a book,
I
Embrace Your
did,
Awesome,
yes,
right? Tell me the inspiration on that and how was that process?
yeah. So as we both know, we impact people in a positive way on our floor. And I think it was at that, if we put all this into this full circle conversation here, is what can I wanted to write, and the first book I wrote, I felt like I was just a Tony Robbins wannabe. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm just
Okay.
writing a motivational book for adults, like that market's not been saturated.
Right.
But I wrote it, and then and it just hit me one day. I'm sitting there and I'm like, because I'm writing Matt chats, and I'm like, what if I just do a book for kids? Like,
Yeah.
what if when my life changed, I was in my 30s, right? I'm in my life in my 30s when I'm listening to those Tony Robbins tapes, and I start implementing this stuff in my life, and I, these life traits, resilience, perseverance, the weaknesses, all these things that resonated with us because as a martial artist, they were already in play, but we weren't
Yeah.
identifying them. I only knew how to do that but how do I put myself in position to get beat up in life? Or break my comfort zone in life. And I'm not gonna jump out of an airplane. So, move the floor is better. But I was looking at that and I'm like, wait a minute, what if I do this? And if I'm already teaching kids, what if I take this and I make this book geared towards, if someone would have told me what I learned in my 30s at the age of 8, how different would my teen life been? How my early 20s would I have been there quicker, right? Than what it took me to get to the stage in life where I felt I've arrived. If I could have done it earlier, and then how can I extend what I'm doing beyond my 4 walls? And the book just made perfect sense. So then I just completely went that direction with the book, and the whole thing. And now I'm doing an online program off of it, where I want to help parents have a program that they can, because some parents, we get them all the time, right? They'll come to you and say, hey, I want to teach I want to improve his self-esteem.
Yeah.
Have you had a conversation with your child about self-esteem? And then you realize they don't even know how to explain it to their child. But we all want confidence. We all want focus. We all want self-esteem. And so what if I created a model that helped coach parents to know how to do that, right?
Yeah.
And then, I think the other thing I'm working on with that is, can we turn it into a Mat Chat series for martial arts school owners? Because there's a lot of martial arts school owners, surprisingly enough, don't have a character development Mat Chat type program. So that's kind of where I'm going with the book. But really it was like, what can I do at this stage in my life? Again, it's stuff that I've done for all these years, but can I make it more accessible to the general public beyond my 4 walls? And that was kind of the motivation to go that route with the book, and to not just be another book
Right.
that was out
No,
there for
I like it.
adults.
I like it.
Focus on the kids.
And I love the name too. It's an awesome name.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time today. I'm gonna finish up with the last question here. When you just hear the word rise, what do you hear? What does it represent to you when you just hear that word?
Level up. And not just, I think we have to, when I rise in the morning, I got to figure out how I'm rising for the day, and rising for the year, and rising for the month. And not just that, but what's the saying? Rising tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
So by this mentality, I 100% believe in this mentality. I want to not only level myself up, but anybody that's in my circle, I want to pull up.
Yeah.
And can we all raise each other?
Amen. All right. Hey, man, I appreciate your time today. It's been awesome.
It was great. I appreciate it. I felt hopefully we stayed on. I think sometimes whenever I have somebody that I know, sometimes I feel like we just fall into conversation, and then you're like, did we accomplish what we wanted to accomplish?
I love it. That's why we're gonna do a series of these. I like it. I'm gonna pause this for a second.
Welcome to Ready, Set, Rise, the ultimate podcast made for martial artists by martial artists, with your hosts, Aaron Hensley and Cameron Smith.